just got back from vacation down in the Cypress Hills area of Alberta at the interprovincial park down there. And of course, going on travels, I need to grab whatever I can from like used bookstores and thrift stores and that kind of thing for some Canadian graphic novels and Canadian illustration. But I gotta say, like, you know, when I go to these places, I often see stuff that doesn't fit that criteria, but I gotta pick up anyways just because it's awesome. Or if I already have it, try to maybe, you know, share it with others who maybe aren't familiar with that material or what have you. Or maybe I'll run a contest on this channel and send you some of my doubles. But nevertheless, yeah, we've got quite a mix here. I managed to visit a couple of places. For the longest time, Medicine Hat didn't have a bookstore, and I was going to make a crack about how, yeah, Medicine Hat doesn't read, which, yeah, it's kind of an odd thing. They do have a bookstore. They have actually a couple of bookstores now that I think about it. They got the bookstore at the campus, as much as that can qualify as a bookstore. But also, too, they have unlimited characters, which I promise I'm going to visit next time I'm in town there. But I did get to visit a couple of places in Lethbridge where I picked up a lot of this stuff. Of course, there's the big box thrift store, but more importantly, you've got Echo Books and Big John's Books, which are both in very charming downtown Lethbridge. I really like that Lethbridge is downtown. It's a great little city. But yeah, it's visiting Echo Books and Big John's Books and the thrifts, the big box thrift in Lethbridge. And in the Hat, actually. Some of these came from there, too. So, first one that you're seeing is You Might Be from the Great White North, If, by John Henderson, which looks like a book that came out maybe in, like, 1990s or early 2000s. But, yeah, this book did come out in 2018. John Henderson is an illustrator he's actually from Newfoundland, but he does do... I don't think he's syndicated, but he's doing a lot of stuff for a lot of different publications up in the territories. So that's pretty cool. And I do have his link to some of his material in the description below, so you can definitely access that there. Let the Chaps Fall Where They May, a Stu Cameron collection. I get the impression that these were they were published by Cameron Cartoons, which I think was his own company. This book, though, is from a collection of books. I think the collection has about like 5 books in it, all of Stu Cameron's work. And it is prohibitively expensive on the aftermarket. I can't find it. For a reasonable price, it's hard to come across. So I saw this one. This one was like $4 or whatever. So I did grab it. But it is from that bigger portfolio collection that I do want to get my hands on at some point. I just don't want to pay a heavy price for it. So hopefully that comes across my hunts. But yeah, Stu Cameron, longtime Albertan cartoonist whose work I really, really like. And I want to do a deep dive on some of his stuff at some point in the future in one of these videos. I promise I will. I just don't know when yet. Maybe when I collect all of this portfolio, we'll take a dive. I've got some other stuff that he did about William Aberhart here. That you might have seen in one of my other videos. All right, we got some Lynda Barry, the always classy, always awesome Lynda Barry. One of the most important female voices in graphic novels, I think. She's been around for a very long time, being published by Drawn Quarterly. Yeah, we could probably consider her one of the early feminist graphic novelists. Not a Canadian herself. So she doesn't fit into my collection. Hold on, I just got a new light. So I'm testing here. Yeah, she doesn't really have a place in my collection, but I'm going to keep this anyways and have a read, and we'll see what ends up with this afterwards. Of course, Lynda Barry is incredibly competent and very enjoyable to read. She's got wit. She's the full package, and always enjoyable to read. So definitely jump through that. I already have a copy of SKIM by the Tamaki cousins. But of course, seeing this in the wild, I was like, I can't let this rot on a shelf. I can't let this sit on a big box store bookshelf. I'm gonna make sure somebody else is able to read this. Of course, the Tamaki cousins always producing consistently awesome stuff, and SKIM is no exception. New York Times Book Review, Best Illustrated Children's Book Awards, probably in the year that it came out, which was 2008. All right, No Girls Allowed. Some more feminist graphic novel literature, which is awesome. Always awesome, especially here because we've got Willow Dawson who's doing the illustration. I quite like Willow Dawson's work. I don't know if she's from out in these parts in Alberta. I get the impression she might be. But I think she's operating out of Toronto. I've got a link in the description to her illustration page, her homepage. But yeah, looking forward to read this because I have read the work that came after this. I do have it. Hyena in a Petticoat. And she's done some children's books as well, including The Wolfbirds. At some point, I will take a deep dive on Willow Dawson as well on this channel, because I do like her very simple, kind of leaning into the coloring. Actually saying that, that's just the cover. Most of the stuff that I've read has been in black and white like this. She's got real like Peter Cooper vibes to her art. So, and I'm definitely a Peter Cooper mark. Having followed his work since like I first discovered it in the pages of Vertigo comics. But yeah, her stuff is fantastic. So I'm gonna take a dive into her work, her whole body of work at some point. I just need to get her whole body of work and get my hands on some of these children's books that she's illustrated. But yeah, cool stuff. Judy for girls. So this, and I was like, oh, this looks like it could be a comic book. And of course it is. I don't know what this is exactly. The publisher is the same publisher as Beano, DC Thompson and Co. And of course, Beano has been around forever. Very British stuff. Judy for girls. Must have been for young British girls. But yeah, really cool stuff. I'm going to take a wander through this at some point and just check out like who's doing the illustration in this stuff. I don't know. Judy for Girls is said to be all one illustrator, Marion Turner, but I think there are a few illustrators at play here. I don't think it's just her. And I do think as well that there's a bunch of other like shorts from the pages of Judy for Girls, like Anne Karen Dell. I don't know if that's a character or if that's somebody that like awesome stuff like this. I have no idea what the date is on this thing. It said that Judy for Girls started coming out in the 1960s and went until early 1990s. So I don't know if this is still or if the artists are alive, or maybe some of these shorts that are published in here came from other books prior to this. But yeah, nothing on it to indicate the year. Little Orphan Annie, the 5th volume from 1935. I'm not that familiar with Little Orphan Annie by Harold Gray. And I thought, you know what? I don't have a deep appreciation of some of the classics. I need to dive into some of the classics a little bit more. But yeah, clearly, just flipping through this, I can see so much Chester Brown's work. being influenced by some of this Harold Gray stuff. So I always associated Chester Brown's work largely with Tintin, but I mean, looking at some of this, like the use of shading, how he uses shading, is pretty similar to, especially this character, being really similar to some of the stuff that I've seen in like Louis Riel, right? It's almost like Louis Riel is a tribute to this in some ways. Cat's Cradle, Book 1, The Golden Twine by Rioux. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your last name. But yeah, I assume Canadian illustrator coming out of Kids Can Press. Only one book ever published by Rioux. But looks like a fun book. Golden Twine, Cat's Cradle. I hope it involves cats. I don't know. Maybe it's just in reference to the twine. Yeah, the Golden Twine, Cat's Cradle. There you go. Editorial cartoons of Cam. I don't know how I'm familiar with Cam. I've seen Cam's work a lot. Have heard of Cam. I don't know if I was exposed to it in like the Edmonton Journal or like the Calgary Herald. But yeah, Cam, I get the impression, has been mostly publishing out of Saskatchewan, of course, this being published by the Leader Post. So yeah, I'll be going through that. Ben Wicks and Company, the third cartoon treasury. As you know, I'm trying to amass some Ben Wicks stuff because he was an illustrator here in Calgary for a very long time, doing stuff for, I believe, the Herald. But yeah, this is his third cartoon treasury. I didn't realize there was a third one. I've got the first two. This one being published by McClelland and Stewart. The first two being published by Methuen. And it's not Ben Wicks and Company for the other two treasury editions. It's just Ben Wicks himself. So I don't know who else is joining Ben Wicks in this little Ben Wicks and Company. Yeah, he doesn't say anything in an intro or what have you. I don't know if legally he had to put and Company, but I'll find out. All right, this is one I'm not too sure about either. All right, so I picked up this, the Cartoon History of Time, which seems kind of an odd thing. And I'm pretty familiar with like the cartoon history of the universe. And I want to say it's the same artist, but I can't say for certain. I don't know if that's right here. But we'll have a look. Here, Kate Charlesworth and John Gribbin. I don't even know if these people are Canadian. I don't think they are. But the reason why I picked this up is merely because I do want to learn more about time. Time is a very complicated thing to think about. I like to think about some complicated things, but I don't know how to think about it. So cartoon history of time is going to help me out. This was an interesting find because I don't normally pick up this kind of stuff. It's like religious comic books. You know, I try to keep an eye out for chick tracts, which are banned in Canada. There's not a whole lot that is banned in Canada. And so it's weird to think that like chick tracts are. But yeah, Marguerite Bourgeois. Again, I truly apologize if I'm butchering this name. I don't know about this character. I don't know about this nun. But it is published by the Congregation de Notre-Dame in Montreal. So yeah, and co-founder of the Canadian Church. I'm eager to learn about this because I tend to have a very cynical view of like even just images like this where you've got a cross next to an Indigenous person back in frontier times. If you know some of the history, it's pretty rough history. But I don't know if that's the case with this particular congregation. I don't know. I assume so. I assume that there was some participation in some pretty awful stuff. But I do get the impression like this woman's efforts truly were grounded in the desire to educate people. All right, not necessarily educating people in the like to follow God or what have you, but just to educate people, and in particular educating women, which isn't something that was always seen as a priority throughout history. And I think too, she challenged, from how I understand it, she challenged some of the structure of the Catholic Church here on the side of Canada, challenging some of the traditions. But that was just from a very superficial Google search. I'm going to read this and I'll let you know more about this, but I'm happy to say that this is the first one in my collection, truly like faith-based comic book. All right, that gives some of the history behind this founder. So looking forward to that. Oh, I should mention the illustrator. Again, I'm probably going to butcher this, but Alain Dorange, who himself is a very well-regarded French illustrator, and has been around for a very long time, whose art style, I mean, his art style in this is, it's nice, don't get me wrong, like this looks great, but some of the stuff that I saw online when I searched his name was fantastic. Like that real classic, like almost EC, but I guess like pre-EC stuff. Fantastic. All right. Saw this and just had to grab it. I get the impression it's from early on in the history of Fantagraphics, going back to like, I think this is like 1981. Cool stuff, kind of like a it is post-apocalyptic story by Herman, who I'm not familiar with at all, but I saw this in the wild, had to grab it. Belgoda, it's a comic for the 80s from Fantagraphics. Doesn't tell me anything about what's inside of this book, but hey, you know what? It's all good. The illustration's fantastic. Got some indigenous imagery going on throughout this book. And yeah, totally post-apocalyptic kind of situation going on. Fun. Yes, Dear Teacher, the first Dear Teacher. I have the second one, but I haven't been able to find the first one. But I thought it was inevitable that I was going to find this. They're pretty fun little books. Tom Nesbitt is the illustrator for these, who I think is fantastic. A really fun, expressive illustrator. So yeah, Dear Teacher, the first collection. I've got the second collection back there in the book collection. So there you go. Some political cartoon stuff, particularly about John G. Diefenbaker. Diefenbaker being one of our former prime ministers. He was Prime Minister of Canada, I believe, before I was born. I think he was the Conservative Prime Minister that came before Big Chin, Mulroney. Diefenbaker, I know, isn't always... he's not the greatest dude, from how I understand it. He's not the nicest man. I believe he's from BC. Even, is it Prince George is he from? I could be totally wrong about all of this. I should probably check my facts before I start talking about this guy. But yeah, as far as illustration goes, it's various artists, various political cartoonists from across Canada that are kind of giving this send-off to Diefenbaker. You've got some awesome people in here. Aslan Norris, of course. Donato, one of my favorites, and the classic McPherson. But just as I was having a flip through here... yeah. Okay, so, well, this is a pretty famous little cartoon of Diefenbaker by McPherson. This cartoon appears in some of McPherson's other works, other books. Let Them Eat Cake, Diefenbaker, really having no concern for people who aren't wealthy, as our conservative governments tend to do. Have zero concern with anybody except for the people who are funding their political campaigns. Yeah, I wanted to show you a Donato in here. I don't think the reproduction is very good in these because Donato's a master. So is McPherson, of course. And Donato's variation in his cartoons from one day to the next can be vast and huge. And I'd really like to see how this headdress is rendered initially. He's using some watercolors here. I'm sure there was a lot to this cartoon. So hopefully I can find some of that elsewhere too. Reproduction not being great in this Diefenbaker collection. All right, I was pretty excited to see this for a few reasons. One is that I lent my copy out at some point and it never found its way back to me. I don't know who I lent it to or gave it to. I know I lent it. But it's all good. So Sarah Leavitt, I believe, is Alberta based as well. This is a great book. This is a really great book. This is an advanced reading copy, so I was also really pleased to get my hands on this little artifact because I have read this book before. Yeah. Agnes Murderess. What else can I tell you about this? Oh, yeah, I mean, she's won a Vine Award for Canadian Jewish Literature for this book, Alberta Book Publishers Award for Speculative Fiction. She was a finalist for both Canadian Comic Prizes, Doug Wright Awards, and the Joe Shuster Awards. Her other book, Tangles, living with a mother who was experiencing or suffering from dementia, I believe she was nominated for an Eisner for that one. So, I mean, Sarah Leavitt, a pretty big deal. And Freehand Books being the publisher of, I believe, both of her books. But yeah, definitely the publisher of Agnes Murderess. So I'm going to jump back into this thing. I'm going to read it again here in the near future and really just kind of roll around in it because I think Sarah Leavitt is a very important voice, a very important female voice in our current Canadian graphic novel publishing environment. Awesome stuff, Sarah. Hopefully you keep knocking them out because yeah, Tangles was fantastic and I remember this being totally awesome as well. All right, the best of Butyl editorial cartoons. I've never heard of Butyl before, but his work is largely published in Atlantic Canada, and I don't have a whole lot of that. I don't think that's well represented. You know, it's kind of like the prairies, not terribly well represented. Usually it's voices from like BC or like old Canada, like Quebec and Ontario, that you tend to hear about those illustrators a lot. Not so much about people out of the Atlantic provinces. So eager to add this to my collection. And then I got this one Lindsay found. And I really enjoy nature illustration, and I would consider this to be that. Backhouses of the North by Muriel E. Newton White. This book was published by the Highway Bookshop in Cobalt, Ontario, which I gotta note, they're considering Cobalt, Ontario as north. I don't know if they consider it to be Northern Ontario. It's pretty like well in the center of Ontario. I gotta say, like North Ontario is like really rugged. Northern Canada? No, I don't think so. I live in Southern Alberta, and I'm more north of Cobalt, Ontario. I sound super snobby as I'm talking about all this. It really doesn't matter. Backhouses of Canada would have been a great topic. I don't even know if Muriel's still alive. I should probably find out. But this little book is pretty cool. Her illustration in here is awesome. She's using a number of different techniques. The things I really like about this book, though, is the paper it's printed on. Ooh, it's got some awesome texture. It's almost like a plastic. It almost feels plastic, these pages. I don't know if they are actually plastic or if you can see that kind of grit on the paper. Also, too, loving this back cover. It looks awesome. It looks like a piece of wood. Genuinely, it looks like a chunk of wood. But yeah. Back houses. We call them outhouses here in the West. That, again, doesn't really matter. What matters here is the beautiful illustrations, which Muriel provides to us. And the last one I found out there thrifting was the ElfQuest Gatherum, not published by Epic, Warp, who I associate with ElfQuest. I haven't read a whole lot of ElfQuest in my life. The whole fantasy genre is just not something that is terribly appealing to me. But I do recognize its significance in terms of independent publishing. And of course, Wendy and Richard Pini being stalwarts of independent publishing. Their work has appeared, like ElfQuest has been with like almost every publisher that I can think of, maybe with the exception of DC, but I'm sure I'm wrong about that. Like maybe Paradox did something with ElfQuest. But here, Fantagraphics. Fantagraphics. My favorite factoid of ElfQuest is that Wendy Beanie was the model for Red Sonja, who is an important character as well in graphic lit. Neat stuff. This isn't a comic, though. This is like a little magazine, I guess, about ElfQuest. And you get this little treat in here. Where did I see it? There it is. Sergio doing some ElfQuest right there. Hopefully you can see that okay. Yeah. Awesome stuff. So that's my stack. One other thing I do want to mention, just as a little teaser tidbit, is so with the graphic novel that I've been working on and the issues of Genki that Charles and I are going to be selling at a few shows coming up, one of the big pieces that, or one of the symbols that appears often in my bigger work, the bigger graphic novel, is doilies. And I was like, okay, well, I want to sort of embrace some of that imagery somehow. And I grew up around doilies. Doilies were everywhere in my house. And I think any kid of like the 80s probably came into contact with doilies and questioned their worth. But yeah, so talking to my mom about all of this, she went and made some doilies. Because I was shopping around at all these thrift stores trying to find like little doilies. So my mom went and put together 100 doilies. 100 doilies. So everybody who buys a copy of Genki is going to get a doily of their own in preparation of the larger graphic novel. To read that properly with a doily, a cup of tea on your doily, so that you can truly get that immersive experience, because doilies sure show up in that story. So if you catch us at one of these conventions coming up, the one in Edmonton or Panel 1, you're gonna get yourself a doily. How nice is that? Thanks, Mom. So yeah, that's it for this haul. Stick around. We're probably going to do some process stuff around Genki here soon. It's hard for me to talk about, but yeah. Thanks for tuning in. Like, follow, subscribe, and I will see you next time.